Now, this episode is going to wrap up our series on looking at Bob Dylan's studio albums through the decades. We started back in 1960, and now here we're coming up to what will be the decade started in 2020. It means this guy's had 7 decades of creating music. So let's see what Bob does, starting with the year 2020. Let's drop the needle. After spending a lot of the previous decade doing covers of Frank Sinatra songs and other great old American standards, Bob surprises everybody by starting this decade by putting out a song on his YouTube channel. And it's a 17-minute epic called Murder Most Foul, and it concerns the assassination of President Kennedy. Bob continues this approach of putting stuff out on his YouTube channel with 2 more songs, which are I Contain Multitudes and False Prophet. Now, Murder Most Foul went on to reach #1 on Billboard's digital download charts. And all 3 of these songs were put out to hype what was going to be his next album. So I think it's safe to say that even though it's this far into his career, Bob Dylan likes to surprise his audience by putting out songs in new, unexpected ways. And by doing it digitally, what he was really doing was creating hype for his next album, which was called Rough and Rowdy Ways. On this double album, tracks include I Contain Multitudes, False Prophet, I've Made My Mind Up to Give Myself to You, Goodbye Jimmy Reed, Crossing the Rubicon, Key West Philosopher Pirate, and the tremendous epic Murder Most Foul. Everybody loved this album. On the day it was debuted, it went right to the top of the charts, and when it finished its run, it was at #2. Now, here's an interesting fun fact. That means that Bob Dylan is the only artist in 7 consecutive decades to have an album in the top 40. Pretty cool. In December of 2020, Bob Dylan stuns the world by selling his entire music catalog to Universal. And although we don't know the actual details, it's rumored that the sale was somewhere in the area of $400 million or more. Then in July of 2021, Bob films a concert. It's in black and white, and it looks like it's him in a small club. The film was called Shadow Kingdom, the early songs of Bob Dylan, and a soundtrack follows. It's an eclectic track list. Songs include When I Paint My Masterpiece, Queen Jane Approximately, Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues, Forever Young, It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, and many more. Reaction to the film and the album was ecstatic. Bob released his first book, Tarantula, way back in 1971, and then, as I mentioned before, he released in 2004 Chronicles Volume 1. But we've never seen Volume 2. And then just last year, in 2022, he releases his 3rd book, The Philosophy of Modern Song. In it, he writes essays about 66 different songs by a variety of artists. And we must never forget that now Bob Dylan, at the age of 82, is still out on his NeverEnding tour. Maybe you can catch him when he comes around to your town. Now, as usual, I've created a Spotify playlist, which will contain some of the songs that I've played in this episode. As usual, I've created a Spotify playlist, which contains some of the songs that I've talked about in this episode. Here's the link, and I'll put it in the comments down below. Now, at the start of this series, and actually at the beginning of every episode, I said that I'm only going to talk about the official studio releases that Bob Dylan has put out in each decade. But there is a lot more that we could look at, and that might happen in future episodes. For instance, Bob has released 17 volumes of what are titled the Bootleg Series, containing rare outtakes and song fragments. And he's released 15 live albums. So even though we've only covered Bob Dylan's official studio releases, you can see that we've really only scratched the surface of what is Bob's continuing musical legacy. Now, if you're new to this channel and just stumbled on this episode and are curious to know about Bob Dylan's studio albums through the decades, here is the link that'll take you back to our first episode on that, which was episode 175, Bob Dylan studio albums in the 60s. And then we continue on from there. I hope you found this both informative and enjoyable, and thanks for watching. And until next time, keep it rocking.
If you liked this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.